Welcome to Destination Durham, a TV show that highlights the community spirit of the town of Durham, linking our past and exploring our future. Tonight's episode will be about storm response and recovery. As you know, 2011 was a year of extreme weather. We had storms that taxed our budgets, our resources, our patience, and other things. However, it did give us an opportunity to highlight our strengths, our resiliency, and our genuine concern for our neighbors. Tonight, we are going to share some of our experiences and some of the lessons learned. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for tuning in.
The next time your phone rings, it might not be a sales call, but an alert from Safer Durham.
We try to pick things that are, going to be informative to people, like if there's a paving job or chip sealing or brush, like with the brush pickup, where we extended the transfer station hours as well as the brush pickup a week. We use that to send out to people, let people know that, normal lives are going to be disrupted, and this is why.
The notification system named Safer Durham is not completely new to the town, but has gained popularity most recently for its use during Hurricane Irene.
Because of the flexibility of the Everbridge system, meaning because we had the ability to use landlines, cell phone numbers, text messaging, and emails, we knew that there was a great possibility that we were still reaching a good amount of our people, our residents, even though we had power outages.
The senior community, we did a lot of messages just really targeting that if they need anything to call the storm line or to go to the shelter, we have people staffed there to assist them.
Household pets are welcome in a cage or on a leash. All pets will be housed in a pet shelter at CRHS.
While the system does require some training, town officials say it's easy to use, a key factor during an emergency.
So the first step is identifying who do you want to call, or who do you want to contact. So obviously within an all-town broadcast, you would select the entire town and all the people who have registered in the system. The second step is to basically record what you want to say. And many of the recordings that we've done, Laura's identified herself. This is for select person, and she's given the information in a really as short a message as possible, but in as much detail as needed.
What we do is we put the message down on a computer, because we also want that message to be texted and emailed. So we first put it in print, and then I read it and record it, and it's just a push of a button. Very easy.
The Safer Durham system has been used almost 50 times since it was first purchased.
We do say their safety is our #1 concern, and our emergency services take that very seriously. So, we won't use it unless it's, a safety issue or, some event that is going to affect them.
I believe it's an essential tool in our toolbox for responding to emergencies. 2011, we had 3 major snowstorms. Or, I take that back. We had 2 major snowstorms. Some in January, 1 in October, and then in August we had a rainstorm that caused a lot of flooding in the town of Durham. We had to take our emergency operations plan off the shelf and put it into practice during those storms. Tonight we want to share some of the lessons that we learned and some of the tips that we want to give to you so that when this happens again, and hopefully that's not anytime soon, we can all be better prepared. Tonight we are joined by our Fire Chief, Rob Chad, of the Durham Volunteer Fire Company, our Deputy Fire Marshal, David Steele, our Emergency Management Director, Francis Willett, and our Chief of Service of Durham Volunteer Ambulance Corps, Tom Wimler. Rob, let's start with you. What do you think you would like to tell our residents about some of the things that we learned together from your department?
A couple of things that we did learn was, one was candle safety. Especially with the power outage, people use their candles to light their house. And also for other things around, whether seeing outside and stuff like that. And we had a couple incidences, one per storm, one from the Hurricane or Tropical Storm Irene, and one from the snowstorm. Both resulted in significant damage to a structure by the use of candles. And another one would be the carbon monoxide. A lot of generators are being used. which brings the exhaust level or the carbon dioxide level inside of a house above dangerous levels. And we had a couple incidents in town where the carbon dioxide levels in residents did get sick in our town and had to be medical treatment for that sickness. So some things I would think of would be really is, carbon dioxide detectors with batteries to help out, that would get rid of that problem, to help alert the residents that they have a problem in the house. And really just proper placement of generators, not too close to the house, not in the house, and that's about it. Also being patient with the first responders in the town. We were going every direction for a couple of days. Sometimes we have roads shut down and cause detours and stuff throughout the town, and stuff we can't help. We're just there to help stop the residents from getting in dangerous positions.
Speaking of generators, because the news told everyone to run down to Home Depot and buy a generator. Now, a generator is not something that you can just plug in and use. Don't you recommend hiring a licensed electrician to help you install that and show you how to operate it?
Correct. You don't want to install a generator directly into your house without actually consulting with an electrician, a certified electrician. You can backfeed power into the street, which would cause electrical hazard for whoever's outside, whether it be the pole people, Northeast Utilities out there working on the poles, or the tree people cutting the trees off the lines. So one of the big things that also is just, like you said, proper generator placement in the house, or have an electrician do the proper installation with an emergency shut-off switch so it doesn't feed out to the street.
Dave, anything to add in terms of safety in your house and fire?
Well, as far as generator safety, one of the big things people can do, as with any kind of device, is make sure that you read and understand the directions, and especially if it's a portable one that you're fueling. You want to make sure, just as with your lawnmower, that you want it to cool down a little bit before you fuel it, because if you're putting gasoline into the generator and the exhaust is hot and gas gets on it, you're going to have a fire. So, and then the other thing too would be, with that, as Rob said, you want to make sure it's properly installed, it's properly maintained. I know after the two incidents, both Irene and Alfred, that people right now are out buying generators, and every place you see is advertising them. Even I've seen a flyer for Ocean State Job Lot. They're selling generators. So in the big rush to get them, just make sure that you understand how they work and they're properly installed.
Now, one of the things we noticed, every time a neighborhood would get powered, there would likely be a call, a 911 call, because somebody would either see smoke, or smell something funny, or possibly a faucet was left down on and now there's flooding. Do you recommend that people keep watch of their homes?
Right. And in a situation where, like Alfred and Irene, if you're going to leave for any period of time, if you're going to go stay at the shelter, if you're going to go stay with a friend or a relative, you should secure your house. There were several incidents around the state where people forgot to even shut off the burners on their stove and had left the house and power came on and caused fires in the kitchen. So you want to secure everything in your house. You want to shut off appliances. You may want to go downstairs and shut off the main breaker on your circuit breaker panel, so that shuts off all the power into the house.
Dave mentioned that going to the shelter. Francis, we had a pretty good practice on how to operate a emergency shelter.
Yeah, we've been trying to drill with all our volunteers the shelter for probably the past 3 or 4 years, and we got the opportunity to not only drill it but actually execute it twice. I think the big thing with the shelter was getting the message out to residents early that the shelter was going to be open. Then you have to bridge the gap of people with the stigma of images of Katrina, where they were going to be stacked like cordwoods in a shelter. And when the word got out that it was actually pleasant, there were 3 meals a day, and they had places where they could charge their cell phones. And obviously we had 2 different types of shelters. In Irene, we had basically a place to go for showers, food, and charge your cell phones. And in the winter storm, we basically had 100, 200 cots set up for people to stay overnight because of the cold. And I think it also taught our staff, not only us in emergency services, but also taught the residents that that 72 hours that they're self-sufficient only goes so far. So I think that in the winter when they have no heat and they have, we had a lot of people that would come to the shelter, get warm, get their cell phone charged, and stay till about midnight, and then they'd go home and sleep in a warm bed with a ton of blankets, and then they would wake up early in the morning and come to the shelter for showers and charging and food and go off to work. So I think it showed a lot of people what they're willing to tolerate, but when it got to 4 or 5 days, then it really got challenging for people. So I think it taught a lot of people. I think there were a lot of permits for generators to be purchased after the second storm.
Well, you spoke about communication, and that's one thing that I know when we do our review of our operation plan, which we do every year, I will pay a little bit better attention to. What we learned was that we have to layer our communication. We have very good technology tools to communicate with our residents, but we realized that sometimes that fell short because of the power outage and because maybe people's cell phones and computers ran out of power. And sometimes the internet was down in some cases. So we had to revert to some old school ways of communicating. We hired the message board that worked very well. We printed out literature that we then distributed, but we forgot about radio and TV. So I think that's one lesson learned that I know I'm going to take to heart the next time, is that we make sure that we utilize all of our modes of communication. We learned that Facebook and social media helped us very much, and I think we can probably develop that a little bit more than we have. Tommy, from the ambulance standpoint, one thing that I'm very, very grateful for, even though we were inconvenienced greatly, we didn't have any casualties, and for that I'm really grateful. And that had to do with a lot of the good work that you and your staff did, and some of our residents who took care of their neighbors, which I think was another good thing that came out of this. But there are things that need to be improved on.
Well, one of the main things, and it's not something that we see only in a storm, it's something we see every day when we go out on a call, and it's us, it's the fire department, it's the police department, and that's, we can't help you if we can't find you. And that's a huge problem in a small town like this. Mailboxes aren't in front of driveways. We've got mailboxes that are 50 feet from a driveway. Now you find the mailbox and you're hunting for the house that goes with it, and it's very difficult sometimes. And that's made even worse when we have a storm and nobody has power on it. 3 o'clock in the morning, I can pretty well pick the house that I'm going to by the light that's on the front porch. But in a storm, we're out of luck with that. One of the key things that people can do to really help us with this is the town has these signs that can be purchased. They're $15. People can come right to the town hall to get these. The proceeds from those go to the fire department explorers and to the DART team, the Durham Animal Rescue Team. And these enhance our ability to find people. And it's not, again, it's not just EMS. It's the fire department, it's the ambulance, it's the police department. It could be the postal person, the UPS package that's coming for Christmas. They can find you easier with these. So this is something that's really crucial. The other thing that people can do for us is in a storm like that, you can't turn your outside light on, but if you can have somebody stand at the door waving a flashlight, it makes a big difference. Robbie talked about the fact that we had roads closed. We had a very difficult time maneuvering around our roads. In spite of the incredible work the town crew did, clearing those roads for us in emergencies and trying to keep the roads open, it was days after the storm that we had to go mutual aid to other towns because their ambulances couldn't get through the trees that were still down. The following day of the storms, all of our roads were accessible to emergency vehicles again. So, I mean, that's an incredible asset to, what we have for resources in this town and the way we utilize them. The other thing that I think is really important is medications. People, and we all do it, we're all guilty of it. When do you refill your medications? A lot of people, it's the day you take that last pill, you worry about calling the pharmacy to get your refills. Well, if on that day the pharmacy is without power and can't open, now you're without your medications. And what do you do in that case? So it's important that people think about these things ahead of time, stock up on that. orders when you have still an ample supply to get you through 2 or 3 days, because we shouldn't be without power for much longer than that. And in the instance that we are, there's other areas that we can obtain medications, prescription medications, by having your prescription called into different pharmacies. So there's other avenues for that. But it's those first 2 to 3 days you need to be able to get through.
Not just prescription, but other medical devices such as oxygen.
Absolutely.
And maybe battery backup for any other kind of devices that need electrical power.
We did have an emergency that we had to go out to. The person's electronic oxygen device failed when the power went out, and their generator hadn't been started in years. Somebody had to go out and actually help get their generator going so they could power the devices they needed in the house. There's a lot of things like that that we need, that we rely on electricity for, and we take for granted every day. And when it involves your health, you really need to think about what can you do, what alternatives are there. The shelter, absolutely incredible. We learned a lot of lessons from the first time to the second time with just how to manage some of the medical issues with people in the shelter. What we saw was people coming to the shelter, and how do you prepare to do that? Well, when you have no power, it makes it difficult to think about what do I need to take with me. We tend to think of comfort before we think of our health things. It's real easy to leave your medications at home. At the shelter, we also had an area for pets to be sheltered. People don't think about that. Nobody wants to leave home in the cold and leave their little puppy sitting home. So there's a way to shelter your puppy. But again, a lot of people have pets that are on medications. You can't forget to take those with you. And every day when we go to someone's house, one of our biggest challenges is obtaining their medical information. And one of those are their list of medications. We encourage everybody to have a written list of all of their medications and keep that handy somewhere. If they don't have that, at least having the medications all in one place so we can make a list helps us. But we go into houses where there's medications on the kitchen counter, on the kitchen table, in the bathroom, in the bedroom, and it's like a game you're playing, running from room to room to get a list of all these people's medications.
So what you're really saying is everyone should have their own personal emergency operations plan. And I think we have some resources that we can direct our residents to learn about that, right?
Yep, we have a Ready Durham program on the town website, and it's based on the Ready program that's at the national level. And just simply 3 steps: get a kit, make a plan, and stay informed. It's real simple for people to remember. And I think the biggest thing that people will do, I know for me, the 7-day window, I think a lot of people weren't prepared for the 7 days being out of power. Or they were prepared, they thought they were prepared until a lot of their things that they used, they ran out of. And then they had to, a lot of folks were going over to Wallingford for fuel because they only had a certain size gas can for their generator, and their generator pretty much used the gas can 3 times a day. They think money. I think the fact that our number one priority was get Main Street Power back online. A lot of people didn't stockpile money in a safe place so that they could go buy gas. They had to go find the ATM that had power first and then go and get fuel for their car. And so I think those key things that you do that you just assume will be there. The internet, I think it was amazing to see that literally people were searching around neighborhoods that had power for Wi-Fi spots. They were going to schools because they have the fiber optic network in the libraries. So we were really conscious of that from our standpoint because we had to move a lot of resources to like the school so people could charge their cell phones. And we set up a whole bunch of workstations. The first storm, we only set up 1 computer. The second storm, we had 15 laptops that were set up with internet access from the school. So, Tommy talked about the phenomenal job that we did with the school, but the school doesn't happen just by opening the doors. The District 13 has to basically dedicate that space to us. We had the fire department help us with the setup on a lot of the equipment because a lot of the equipment isn't staged at the school. We had to have a certified EMT to deal with any medical issues that the people were coming into. And then, the other piece that we learned was the food. We don't have a stockpile of 7 days worth of food in our town store. Well, the school does, and the school does when 5 of the 6 schools, or 2 of the schools have power that could keep the food well. The other 4 schools don't. So when the power is lost in the school system, the school now has a policy where they will go around and collect all the food from those other locations and bring it to one of the schools that has generator power so that food doesn't go to waste. Otherwise, all that food would get thrown out. And actually, that's what we used for the 2 storms to actually feed the public. So it was a very, very huge benefit to the public to be able to know that they could get 3 meals a day at the shelter.
Well, we are working to create some redundancies here at the town hall. Internet is very important. And it's not just because we want people to be able to come and play games and go on Facebook and check their email. It's really much more than that, and we learned that. People were coming in because we have residents whose business is dependent on their commerce that they do on the internet. People do banking, mortgages, and other payments that would have been late had they not found an internet connection. And so it's much more. Prescriptions can be renewed via the internet, things like that. So yeah, the bank of computers at the high school was critical. What about personnel? Rob, how did the fire company handle 7 solid days with limited personnel?
Well, a lot of people, we were lucky, a lot of their employers gave them the time off for that time. I took some days off. We have some active members that are working here in town, so we were able to staff our people, but it was the first couple days we had a lot of people, and then it started dwindling down later on, but also the call volume also dwindled down until the power started coming back on again. And the calls picked up, but personnel-wise, we had anywhere between 20 to 35 people on the first few days, and then the last few days, out of 7 days, the last 3 days, we had maybe 10 to 15. So.
And then at the shelter, we probably had another 20 to 25 people a day volunteering at the shelter. And so that's another thing that we have to be very mindful of, is backfilling our personnel as the storm can go on and we get tired. So that was a bit of a challenge. Well, I thank you all for sharing some of these lessons learned, and I know that you will continue to do public outreach to teach our residents. I think you will also agree that our residents really did help us get through this, as well as our trained personnel and staff. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
She's like shoveling off the stuff, and she gets stuck in the truck. Like, because her feet got planted in it, and so it was like flinging around. It's like, guys,
Who's it from, Becca? Greg.
oh, you guys are so jealous, you guys.
Isn't that supposed to be like physics or something?
It's calculus, and I don't know why I took this class because I'm totally failing.
That's crazy. I'm sorry. I gotta go.
Oh. Bye. See ya.
Greg again? Becca, you should really talk to somebody about this. What about your mom? Or Miss Brainerd? She's really nice.
thank you for tuning in to another episode of Destination Durham. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show and that it was helpful and informative. See you around town.